Hey Optimancers, Chris here. The Tal'Dorei campaign setting Reborn from Critical Role is now available on D&D Beyond. And I've been covering all the subclasses in that supplement, and we are at the final subclass, the Blood Magic Wizard. So that's 9 videos and 9 subclasses, and I've put together a playlist for easy viewing. That said, this isn't the last video on Tal'Dorei, as I'll be doing one final video after this one covering the new feats in the book. But for now, let's just focus on the Blood Magic Wizard. Methinks that Matt Mercer really enjoyed the Dragon Age games. Blood Hunter, Blood Cleric, and now the classic, the Blood Mage. At level 2, the Blood Magic Wizard gets 2 features. The first is Blood Channeling. It says whenever your hit points aren't full, you can use your own body as an arcane focus. And I like that idea. It's not super powerful, though there's some cases where it probably could come in handy. Basically, unless casting a spell with a costly component, you can never be without that component, as long as you aren't at full hit points. But if we look at the second paragraph here, we have our means to take care of costly components. It says you can forego a costly component by taking a d10 necrotic damage per 50 gold cost of the component, and the damage cannot be reduced in any way. If the damage reduces you to 0 hit points, the spell fails and you don't lose a slot. So I have, 4 notes here. First, it doesn't differentiate between costly components that are consumed and those that aren't. So you probably want to avoid using it for one-time component costs if at all possible. Second, the cost of taking hit points is a lot less if you're in downtime. So when you're in downtime, if there is a spell you're casting that has a costly component that is consumed, then this is probably worth doing. Third, it doesn't say whether the damage triggers a concentration saving throw if you're casting a spell that requires concentration. But, being that the spell fails if the damage drops you to 0 hit points without expending the slot, I think it's at least implied that the damage occurs before the spell is actually cast. I don't think the intention is that you need to make the save. And finally, fourth, the cost of components. Do not scale evenly with your level, while this scales with a flat d10 per 50 gold pieces. So put out of your mind that this might fuel your highest level spells. Your level 20 wizard cannot handle the 100 d10 non-reducible damage to cover the 5,000 gold piece component of a gate spell. That's instant death. And blood channeling is a neat power. It's very flavorful, but it's not powerful. I'd consider this a ribbon feature. The second feature at second level is Sanguine Burst. This allows the Blood Magic Wizard to re-roll damage dice on a spell of first level or higher that they can cast. They can re-roll a number of dice up to their intelligence modifier, and in doing so, they take necrotic damage equal to the level of the spell. The cost here is pretty low. I mean, you want to re-roll those ones on that fireball you cast, it'll cost you 3 points of damage. That's not very much. Where I could definitely see it is with Magic Missile. That 1d4 makes a huge impact on the final damage, so if you roll a 1, re-rolling could have a pretty big payoff. So this feature is a little stronger than blood channeling, but honestly, it's not super powerful. And considering some of the bigger features that wizard subclasses get at level 2, I mean Portent, Blade Song, Arcane Deflection, Arcane Ward, Hypnotic Gaze, Chronal Shift, even Sculpt Spells, I wouldn't consider Sanguine Burst as good as any of those. Probably more in line with what the Transmuter or Illusionist or Necromancer gets at this level. At level 6, the Blood Magic Wizard gets Bond of Mutual Suffering. This allows the Blood Magic Wizard to use a reaction after taking damage from an attack to inflict an equal amount of damage to the attacker. There's no damage type, they just take the damage. This can't be used on constructs or undead, and it's usable just once per short or long rest, though you do get a second use at 14th level. So there are a few limitations here. First, this is a reaction. So if casting Shield or Absorb Elements is an option, those might end up being better options. Even if Shield isn't going to do the trick, it's questionable whether this or Silvery Barbs is going to be a better option. Though, if your table doesn't use Silvery Barbs, this is better. Another thing to consider is this isn't usable on all damage, just attack-based damage. So if you take a ton of damage from Dragon's Breath, this does not work, because that's a saving throw. They need to have an attack roll, and that attack roll needs to hit you. And the final thing to keep in mind is that, generally speaking, the opponents that do the big damage also tend to have a lot more hit points than player characters. So just because you're taking the same amount of damage, don't necessarily expect the effect of that damage to be equal. This, it's not awful, but again, I'm reminded how strong wizard subclasses tend to be. Level 6 features can be Extra Attack, Manifest Mind, Benign Transposition, Malleable Illusions, Undead Thralls, Transmuter's Stone, and Gravity Well. This doesn't measure up to any of those features. And ultimately, this ends up being the only wizard subclass that doesn't have an absolute banger of a feature at either 2nd or 6th level. At 10th level, Glyph of Hemorrhaging allows you to curse a creature you damage with a spell for 1 minute. During that time, whenever the creature is hit by an attack, it takes an additional d6 necrotic damage. This does not work on undead or constructs, and it's usable just once per short or long rest. Nevertheless, this could potentially be a halfway decent feature if you could put together enough attacks. But the problem is right here. The creature gets a Constitution saving throw to end the curse at the end of each of its turns. So there is a very good chance that not only will it not last a minute, but it won't even last until your next turn. So I have to say, this one is on the weak side too. Other wizards are getting Focus Conjuration, Third Eye, Split Enchantment, Empowered Evocation, Durable Magic, and Arcane Abeyance. So that just leaves one chance to redeem the Blood Magic Wizard. And at 14th level, Thicker Than Water allows you to regain additional hit points whenever a spell or magical effect heals you. And the amount, your proficiency bonus. And while concentrating on a spell, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. Now I need to talk a little bit about monster design here because your mileage may vary on the second part of this feature. Like, if you're playing against creatures in the monster manual most of the time, this could be pretty decent. But if you are playing with newer monster designs at the higher challenge levels, this isn't going to come up nearly as much as you might hope. More and more newer design monsters tend to do different types of damage than the standard bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, and those that do, their attacks being treated as magical, is far more common at the higher challenges. All that aside though, this is probably the best feature this subclass gets. I just don't think it's powerful enough to make up for all that lackluster stuff that has come beforehand. And of course, if you're a wizard, you have a lot going for you before even applying a subclass. So it's not like a blood magic wizard is going to be weak. But compared to the other wizard subclasses, I would consider this the weakest of the lot. And if I was to tier rank the blood magic wizard, it would fall below the illusion wizard on B tier. There's 13 wizard subclasses here, not including the scribes wizard, which is an easy A rank, and in every single case, these subclasses have at least one feature that rocks by level 10. The blood magic wizard's features aren't terrible, but they just don't measure up to the competition. And that's all the subclasses that I have now covered from the Tal'Dorei Campaign Setting Reborn supplement, and I'm going to do one more video to cover the feats in that book, and that's going to end this series. But until then, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, I'll talk to you soon.